Good morning, Hubert Johnson here. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy here on live on Smart Money Channel or smartmoneyculture.tv and also on podcast. So give us a call throughout the show. If you have questions, you can always reach out to us. But today we're going to really focus on some new news. Just came out last night about possible government cuts and what that would mean for us as taxpayers and for our government. So give us a call, 520-485-7371 as we talk about this. If you have questions about larger government, but how this impacts you as consumers. So we got a lot of material to cover. And when we talk about this today, it really is eye-opening and somewhat hopeful for how we could improve our economy. Welcome back, everybody. Hubert Johnson here with Taxes Made Easy. Today we're going to be really diving into a proposal that just came out to actually cut government spending. And that's going to be the topic for the day. And I'm really excited about that. Because it's been something we've been waiting on. We've been short on details, honestly, from both the Trump and Harris campaigns, more so from the Harris campaign, but we're getting some actual news out there, and believe it or not, Congress might actually act on something. Not sure if they actually will, but there's talk about it to that point. So we've got a lot of interesting topics, and Trump's newest proposals are very hearken to what Argentina's Javier Milei has done in Argentina. So we'll get to that as well. So diving first into the news for the day, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Just a couple things from important announcements from the IRS. So first one here is flood relief, or IRS providing some relief, tax relief to victims of severe storms and flooding. So again, just like they did yesterday for the southeast that got hit by hurricanes and flooding and all kinds of disasters to Florida, North Carolina, Georgia, South Carolina. Here they're focusing on Minnesota, and these are the different counties that qualify for this relief. So again, filing and payment relief being kicked out to February 3rd, 2025. And if you are in Minnesota and you're in any of these counties, you get this relief. So again, just go to irs.gov, click on news, and it's right there, August 12th, 2024, to look at this and see, okay, do I qualify for this or not? Moving on. This is kind of a little bit of an arcane topic, but I think it goes along with IRS's overall goal of making irs.gov work for people, which again I will applaud and say kudos to the IRS, because it is. I do want to recognize when they are improving service to people. So they are making certain particular forms late filed international documents. So it is a little bit of a pigeonhole here, available for people that where they can access it electronically and request relief for late filing certain international documents. So what documents are they talking about? Relief for gain, recognition agreements, late filing for dual loss, consolidated losses, and relief for partnership gain, deferral contributions. So very narrow, not going to affect most people. But again, I do want to recognize when the IRS is doing something more helpful. I want more of it. And I do think they're making irs.gov more helpful, but at the same time, their customer service normally is in the toilet. And I say that with all intents and purposes. It's absolutely horrific how bad their customer service is right now. But again, they're proving it online. So next article, this is from the Epic Times. We've got a few Epic Times articles today. Again, this is another company, LL Flooring. filing for bankruptcy. It's not completely shutting down, but they're shutting down about a quarter of their total stores. 94 stores nationwide getting shut down. Again, another large company filing for bankruptcy. They're trying to sell off their underperforming stores. So they have around 430 retail stores, and they're selling off just under a quarter, so 94 underperforming stores. And their plan is to stay in business, but to wind down and get rid of a lot of assets that are hurting them. So, interesting enough, the next article, and I think I just closed that out, is also from the Epic Times, and this one is a little bit different. So, Bank of America had a recession call, or they believe the country is entering into recession territory, and they reversed that, but they're also very warned about very negative consumer spending risk. So if it's not officially in a recession, many people think if you looked at the actual numbers, it would be, especially given inflation. There are a lot of very concerning things out there. One of the biggest things is that consumer spending is continuing to decline. So again, there's a lot of concern out there. The market's been touchy lately. The labor market has suffered. And it says, we're still in a very negative state that would be difficult to reverse, even though they no longer feel that we're going into a recession. One of their biggest positive outlooks here is that they think that the Fed, the Federal Reserve, will prevent deeper economic outturn by changing their interest rate policy. So now people are very confident, they're getting more confident that the numbers have been bad enough that the Fed is now going to be forced to cut their interest rates. And that will help spur the economy overall. But I mean, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It might be short term. It might help in the short term to cut rates, but long term, inflation hasn't gone away. It's decreased, but it still is a huge issue for Americans across the board. So I think any short term help that the Fed can give by cutting rates doesn't solve the deeper issues here. And that's one of the things that really kills me, that we talk about moving the numbers just a little bit here and there and keeping the economy out of a recession, but where is the real growth? Where is the real productivity? So Bank of America, a financial institution, is very sensitive, and they have a lot of information that kind of goes through, and that they're looking at over 60 million consumers and their habits to look at the macroeconomy. And so consumer spending grew about 3%, which was only half of last year. So the consumer has slowed. They have money in their accounts, but they're depleting their accounts a little bit, but they've really slowed down on their spending. And that is really one of the concerns out here. And why they think the Fed is going to cut their interest rates. It's very possible they will this next time, because the information has been bad enough. But it hasn't been positive news for the economy. It's been bad news to encourage them to cut rates. So anyway, it's a little, what's bad for the economy can be good for the economy if the Fed reacts. It's just, I'd rather see solid underlying numbers that will lead to long-term growth. So this is another interesting topic from Yahoo Finance. Tesla, and this is one thing we've been talking about, EV orders are down in a serious way. Now, what they really think as they go through this is that they've saturated the market. Those that really wanted electric vehicles, cybertrucks, etc., it's a new product, and so it was very popular because a lot of people that wanted it purchased it, fueled a lot of high orders, and they produced, I think it was 1.8 million electric vehicles right now. But then they've kind of filled the demand. So they delivered 1.8 million vehicles globally last year, and now the demands are going down dramatically. It's still selling. There's always some people that will want it, but the huge demand, people that really wanted EVs went out and bought EVs, and some are having second thoughts as they figure out how it goes. So it's just, again, we need to be mindful of, and Tesla's making the adjustments that not everybody's going to purchase an EV. It's not going to work for everybody, but for those that want it, they're able to purchase it and get it, even though the cost is pretty prohibitive. I mean, we're talking $100,000 for most trucks. Now, if you go and you just look at a gas-powered truck, if you're buying a newer truck today, you're essentially paying a very similar amount. So there's not a whole lot of a difference there. So jumping to the next article, and this is of concern, mainly because what's happening to gas prices. But again, what's happening around the world? So we just sent another carrier group to the Middle East, to Abraham Lincoln, and again, we're beefing up our presence over in the Middle East because we're expecting significant Iranian attacks. So the Iranians have been supporting Hamas, Hezbollah. They've been stoking this fire and all these attacks around Israel. They were behind the top October 7th attacks, and yet Israel has responded mainly by taking out key members. It was a huge embarrassment when Israel recently took out. Israel hasn't accepted responsibility, but we all know, they took out one of the planners of October 7th, one of the key guys, when he was in Iran visiting their top leaders. And of course, that's where a lot of this was planned. And so it's huge victory, through intelligence victory for Israel to take out this a top Hamas leader in Iran. And so again, because of that, more attacks have been coming from Hezbollah. Hamas has been trying to step things up, and it's just been ongoing. So again, the Biden administration is reinforcing the area, reiterated the United States' commitment to take every possible step to defend Israel, and noted the strengthening of U.S. military force posture throughout the Middle East, given what's going on there. At the very end of it, though, they're calling for a ceasefire, though. But President Biden's going around and his administration pressuring Israel into a ceasefire. And of course, they say, well, as part of a ceasefire, they want the return of the hostages. Most of them are probably dead by now. And then they want an unfettered delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza, which just goes straight to Hamas. So the real question is, can Israel tolerate Hamas in Gaza, given what they've done? I think the clear answer from Israel is no way. The clear answer from this administration and their allies is you will. We're up against another break, so we're going to take come right back in a few minutes. Welcome back, everybody. We're going to jump to the next topic. Again, we have a lot to cover today. And this goes to Tim Walz, who, again, we're trying to really suss out what are the tax priorities of the Harris administration. And so we have very little from them. The main thing we have is the no tax on tips proposal, mimicking Trump's proposal. So looking at what they've done, when Tim Walz was first elected governor, he pushed for a 70% gas tax hike. So how bad does it sound? So again, the history of this is a little bit different. I want to be fair to Governor Walz. It was criticized as highway robbery, and then as inflation surged, gas prices went out, he turned around and supported a federal gas tax pause. So kind of flipped on this. But really, where is he when it comes to increasing taxes? Again, this is really where it comes down to when you look at his overall purposes. And he's consistent, at least overall, with this. He often said the budget is not only a fiscal document, it's a moral document. So what is the morality here? Getting people off of gas. Again, that's pushing people to EVs, to other uses. So his first budget proposal proposed increasing it by 20 cents, which might not sound like that much, but this is on top of from 28.6 cents per gallon to 46 cents per gallon. So it's almost 50 cents, and state taxes alone on top of federal taxes. So you're adding roughly 75 cents or so to every gallon of gasoline. When you look at the actual profit that oil companies get from selling gas, it's far less than that. So when you look at the taxes on gas, it really is outrageous how much they take in gas prices. But they know that consumers have to pay it. They need gasoline to function, for energy, and so they still purchase it. But the vast majority of profit is taken by the government, not by the oil companies. So when they talk about greedy oil companies, oh my goodness, look at the taxes, which is far greedier than anywhere else. So it would make it take it from the 29th highest taxes, so the 70% increase to the 4th highest, placing only behind Pennsylvania, California, and Washington. So this was his initial approach when he first elected. He sold it as a common sense tax increase, and it would help keep Minnesotans safe, help business and farmers get goods to the market, and prevent catastrophic infrastructure disasters. So his gas taxes are normally sold. They say, look, we need this for infrastructure. They do that in California, and then every few years they come out with another gas tax. We need more, we need more, we need more. California's notorious for it. When I lived in California, we would mock it. But again, the voters would usually pass it, and gas prices would just go up again. So when you had historic inflation, just 3 years later, he switched his tune while rallying for re-election. And it makes sense that he would at least show some flexibility while people were really suffering, and he wanted to suspend the federal 18 cents gas tax until the end of the year. He wanted Congress to do that. It didn't happen. But again, he's kept his, what he calls a modest increase on gas taxes in place, while others fought it. So again, Republicans called it highway robbery. And when they were doing this, they got rid of the 20-cent gas tax increase altogether. And so what does Walz do since then? He's gone around it. He's increased fees. He's increased, he did a study mandating reduction in total carbon intensity and transportation, and indirectly increased, did what was called a stealth gas tax, increasing the cost of gasoline. But then the flip side, no money for roads and bridges. So the infrastructure part of that went out the window. And so again, you have a transportation bill that increases the state gas tax annually, but it's capped at 3% roughly so it limits how much and how fast it can grow. But I think this really does highlight when people feel it's a moral obligation to get rid of gas and oil use. The tax is going to come one way or another, and the Biden administration is no exception to that. That they've passed mandatory steps where eventually the car industry has to get rid of. I think it's 2035. They have to become carbon neutral, which means essentially no new gas vehicles. Is that realistic? Is that, again, it's pie in the sky. But again, it would cause the cost of vehicles to go up dramatically. It would force pretty much everybody to buy EVs. And then the burden on our electrical grid system is a whole nother mess. But this is government mandates forcing changes that they want. So, interesting article here. Joe Biden, this is from The Hill. President Biden came out and said he would sign a bill eliminating the tax on tips. This has been in the news because President Trump made this policy proposal back in June. And then 2 months later, Vice President Harris came out and said, hey, we want to cut taxes on tips while also raising the minimum wage. And we talked about this yesterday, how raising the minimum wage actually will increase taxes on and reduce how many tips they get. So again, it reduces the effectiveness of their proposal while, I mean, it's like you're helping them all on one hand, but then increasing their taxes and reducing their tips on the other hand. So again, California, we've seen this where an increase in minimum wage has led to fewer tips because everything costs more. But when it's a voluntary exchange, you provide good service, people will tip. People, the workers usually get more overall. So Trump first raised the issue in the June rally. Then Republican lawmakers quickly followed this suggestion and introduced a bill to do that, which has gone nowhere. We saw the South, the Senate's controlled by Democrats and President Biden, and it was a President Trump proposal. It didn't go anywhere, and now that Kamala Harris has come out and said, I'll do the same thing, but increase the minimum wage nationally. They say we require congressional approval. We do have part of this, a bill already in the House, ready to go, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. But now President Biden is coming out and saying, well, I would sign it if it got to my desk. Why hasn't it gotten to his desk? Why haven't they pushed this? So again, part of this is political posturing. Would Trump actually do it if he became president? If he could get it through the House and the Senate? Probably. Will Democrats actually do it? Well, they've been in power. They've had most of the levers of government. Why haven't they done it if it's such a great idea? So one of the big criticisms, ongoing criticism, has been don't look at what they're doing, look at what they say. Or don't look at what they say they're doing, but look at what they've done as an indication of what they would do. And Kamala Harris was actually the deciding vote for the Inflation Reduction Act and also increasing IRS going after taxes on tips and setting up tip hotlines so people could report anybody that were taking tips and not reporting them on their taxes. So again, they stepped up the scrutiny of tips on one hand, and yet now they're claiming, we should get rid of taxes on tips. So it's a little disingenuous, which is a nice way of putting it. Moving on to the main topic here, and this really goes into government control versus not. So first I want to share this article from the Associated Press, and the Associated Press being a left-leaning site, um, is not very favorable to Milei and his cutting of government taxes, cutting government spending more than anything else to get the economy back in line. So again, cutting the government taxes at the same time, taking a chainsaw, which is how he campaigned. He would have a chainsaw out there in his rallies, and that's what he vowed he would do to government. And so far, he's doing his best to do that. So when he won, the press asked him, what is he going to do? And he said, well, exterminate inflation. That's what he ran on. At least he's trying to do what he promised to do as a candidate. And so he's actually a libertarian economist, is how this article labels him. And he was elected to their Congress for 2 years. And then he's like, I'm sick of this. I'm running for president. We need to hack and slash this government. We need to cut it. At the time, inflation was 300%. Hard to imagine, hard to understand. We complain about inflation. Inflation is probably 15 to 20%, and it's very damaging to us now. But it was 300%. And why? Government overspending. For years. You know, the liberals controlled the government for 17 years, overspent like crazy. And he said the clearest way of fixing that is economic deregulation and getting the government, reducing the size of the government. So, and they're claiming that in this first 142 days, he didn't get a lot done. Now he's negotiating and getting things passed. He got called Congress, their Congress, the rat's nest. But as he goes through this, he actually has gotten some things done, but he's had a compromise like anything else. But again, his goal is to break the status quo. Sound familiar? Go against the establishment. And one of the things he did do, devalued the peso by 50%, removed price controls for food, rent, froze all public works projects, halved the number of federal ministries, slashed government revenue transfers to provinces, cut fuel and transportation subsidies, and laid off 15,000 government workers. So that comes at a cost, short-term cost, anytime you make massive adjustments like that. And I actually work with some people that are in Argentina. I just asked them, how's it going? How's it working? And they say, well, it's yet to be seen. But the biggest change is inflation has dropped down to around 20%. That was their guesstimate. But it's not the 300%. So inflation is still really high, but things are changing now for the better. But a lot of people are struggling through this. Over 40% of Argentinians now live below the poverty line. That's essentially where it was before. Again, this is one of the reasons that they voted for Milei. They needed change. They needed something different. And they finally got desperate enough to go for someone radical. So it goes through how the judges, how the Congress has fought back on some of his key proposals. And so, again, the trade unions are fighting him like crazy. He tried to get rid of automatic dues. Sound familiar? And then he was trying to privatize or get rid of the National Bank and their largest oil company. Again, when you have socialism, government runs, is heavily involved in the economy, and he's trying to pull that back. But has gotten a lot of done. And the economy is shrinking by 2.8%, but that was government spending. So without the government in the way, will you have an economic recovery, and it's still yet to be seen, to go in and fill in this huge hole that's caused by cutting the government? Government growth does not lead to long-term prosperity. but it does put more money, more dollars in the economy, but you're not actually producing anything in most respects. And if it is being done, it's usually done in a highly inefficient manner. So I want to jump to this next article. And this is another one I want to talk about Javier Milei in Argentina because it ties in directly to what our main topic is today, so which is why I'm spending a little bit more time on this. Rent control. So one of the big things he did is and this is coming from Newsweek, a little bit more friendly site to President Milei, he got rid of rent control in Argentina. So it's led to a surge in housing supply with people able to negotiate contracts previously restricted, directly causing a drop in rental prices. So to those on the left, this makes no sense. You get rid of rent control and you get more housing and prices go down. Why would that be? The biggest difference is, he repealed the 2020 rental law, which had, essentially rent control, imposed restrictions on landlords and led to a significant decline in rental availability. This is what happens every time rent control has been tried. It's been tried in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, and every time it has failed miserably. Because landlords, why would they put more out there available? Why would they build and convert properties into rental units when their ability to charge rent is limited? So this is throughout Argentina. Before inflation was 211%, the highest in 32 years. This is from years and years and years of overspending. Rental prices were, with the rental laws, rent control, so it was adjusted every 12 months, and the leases had to last at least 3 years. So you get locked into it. If you had a bad tenant, you couldn't do anything, and the result is 1 in 7 homes in Buenos Aires was sitting empty. Landlords chose not to rent them out and pesos to find other ways to rent them out, to use their properties, but they pulled them off the rental market. This is what rent control does. They've become mission impossible to find rents. And we're seeing that today through much of the United States. Finding a place to rent is very, very difficult. So when they got rid of the rent controls, supply of rental housing has gone up almost 200%. So again, there's a huge difference. The availability of rentals has just shot up like crazy because now the landlord's back in control and they have the incentives to rent again. Whereas President Biden has gone the opposite direction, saying we'll do it only for 2 years. Problem is, when have you seen a government regulation that only lasts for 2 years? So we're up against the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. And I just want to wrap up this last article here. So, the Biden administration proposed rent controls and with limited rate hikes. The thing is, it does the same thing. Whenever you have rent controls, it destroys housing. It makes housing more expensive, and it destroys the quality of housing. And landlords will just take their rentals off the market as soon as they can. Why rent when you can do something else with your house? You can, Airbnb it. There's so many other things you can do. And people just won't invest in housing. So, Vice President Kamala Harris has also indicated support for rent controls. Again, taking on corporate landlords and cap unfair rent increases. So again, even though, like with the tax tips, trying to get rid of the taxes on tips, they might short term take on and say, look, we're gonna get rid of taxes. That's not their usually modus operandi. Usually it's let's increase government regulation, let's force more control, and again, in the end, it hurts consumers. So, want to jump to the main topic today, and this is an interesting, if I can get to the article. This is real quick. Vice President Vance, or not Vice President, but candidate J.D. Vance said that the Trump administration will start with mass deportations with 1 million. Because again, the media always says, look, there's 15 to 20 million people. How do you deport 15, 20 million people? Are you going to go door to door? These nightmare scenarios where you're yanking people out of their homes, pulling kids out of schools, again, causing massive disruptions. And he said, well, you have to start deporting. If you don't deport, because right now we're not deporting hardly anybody. So we're going from one extreme, and the media paints it as we're going to go to another extreme. What did we do before? We deported people. Before Biden and Obama, we deported people. We enforced the nation's laws. And that's the problem when you have lawlessness. Nobody cares. Everybody just comes across, and there's no control of the border. And so the question is, are you going to knock on doors and ask people for their papers? And this has been portrayed as the Gestapo, Nazis going door to door. And he's like, this is the wrong attitude towards it, right? It's like there's 20 million people here illegally. You got to start with what's achievable. What's achievable? Go for the easy stuff. If you start deporting violent criminals and you make it harder to hire illegal labor, that's something that has been pushed. Mitt Romney in particular pushed that, where you have E-Verify, where businesses actually have to verify that the people that they're hiring are here legally. So they're not taking jobs away from Americans that are here legally. You do that, people are gonna self-deport. It happened the first time Trump was elected. When the economy boomed, it didn't go the opposite direction. So again, you can't have a border unless you're willing to deport some people. Doesn't mean we have to go around and yank out 18 million people. He said, let's start with 1 million. Let's start with the people that are committing crimes. Because it's insane that we have criminals committing crimes. Again, there's another story. Someone got raped in New York, broad daylight in the park by 2 immigrants. We're not doing the obvious stuff. And so start with the obvious, start with the easy stuff, and enforce the nation's laws. They're there for a reason. And really that's what we need to do, is enforce the laws and actually start making, common sense application of the laws. Sorry, got a little repetitive there, but it's just, to me, it doesn't make any sense that we're not deporting people. So this is this article from Twitchy. A little bit partisan, a little bit in favor of what happened. So Elon Musk sat down with Donald Trump, did an hour and a half interview or so, last night. I didn't watch it. I usually don't. I don't watch the debates. I read the highlights. What did they actually say? I can't stand the sound bites and this and that. So it drives me nuts. But apparently Elon Musk sat down and just had a conversation with Donald Trump. Now, I'm going to try to be fair and critical here. Elon Musk was not like a reporter asking hard questions, probing. A lot of times Elon Musk sounds like he's, hey, that's what I believe in. Hey, that's great. Even if it was what he believed in, he could have been more critical. So this is not a normal interview. You would sit down with an interviewer that's going to be critical. Now, on the other hand, that's how most Democrat interviews are with CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, and NBC News. There's almost no critical thinking there. It's just, this is what you're saying. I like it. So that's kind of what it seems like this interview was like. So it's funny. A giddy guy like, yes, that's how this article is reacting to some of what came out in the interview. A little over the top. 1.3 million listeners tuned in with millions more. Again, they had another attack similar to what happened to Ron DeSantis when he appeared on X. Again, so was this planned? Who knows? Now, to be fair, Trump mocked DeSantis incessantly, which, again, that's how Trump treats other conservatives, which is what I don't like about Trump. And the same thing happened, but let's get to the meat of the argument. So Elon Musk was just having this conversation with Trump. It wasn't a hard interview. It wasn't, let's critique this, let's ask him, let's probe. It wasn't anything like that from what I'm getting from this. But Trump started talking about the wasted profligate spending in Washington. This is what I've been waiting for. Trump actually started about cutting spending. Now, do we have any solid plans for that yet? No. Which is, I'm very disappointed in that. I don't trust Trump. I trust him more than the Democrats to cut spending because they're the ones spending like crazy. But you got to remember, Trump signed off on COVID. So is he really going to cut spending? We'll see. The jury's out, and I think we should be just as critical if we agree with someone politically as if we're not. There's plenty of Republicans that vote for increases every single year. So our Congress, just like Argentina's Congress, is probably going to fight any cuts like crazy. Because you're taking money out of their pockets and power out of their hands when the government spends less. So he would start talking about doing a committee on government efficiency, so creating a government committee. And he said, well, you've cut spending like crazy in your businesses, so Elon Musk offered to serve on the government efficiency committee to wasted and wasteful spending at a federal level. And President Trump responded, well, you're the greatest cutter. I mean, look what you do. And when you look at Twitter, cut about 80% of Twitter's workforce, and yet the company is functioning in many ways much better after you did an 80% cut. Can Trump just come in and cut things by 80% in the federal government? No. And the Democrats are now doing everything they can to try to prevent that. So again, another reason I don't trust the Democrats to actually cut spending. So they'll make it harder than ever. But again, some of the little, that's the kind of excitement that Twitchy is showing for this. Elon Musk was like, this is great, we want to do this. It was more like a bromance than, hey, let's have a critical interview here. So much to cut. Ron Swanson, excited, any red-blooded conservative, thrilled at the idea. I will trust it when I see it. So anyway, a lot of this is people just talking about this. But one of the funny things here, and this is one thing I want to show. This is President Milei from Argentina, and the kind of cuts that he made.
Turismo y deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera. Ministerio de Ambiente y Desarrollo Sostenible, afuera. Ministerio de las Mujeres y Género y Diversidad, afuera. Ministerio de Obras Públicas, afuera. Aunque te resistas. Ministerio de Ciencia y Tecnología e Innovación, afuera. Ministerio de Trabajo, Empleo y Seguridad Social, afuera. Ministerio de Educación, adoctrinamiento, afuera. Ministerio de Transporte, afuera. Ministerio de Salud, afuera. Ministerio de Desarrollo Social, afuera. Se acabó el curro de la política. ¡Viva la libertad, carajo!
So that's Javier Milei for you. Very aggressive. Half of his cuts actually didn't go through, but half of them did. So again, he's just already cut half of the departments that he wanted to out of the government. And a lot of people are saying that we need this here in the United States. I think we have $2 trillion in cuts to make. And so it just kind of continues on. I want to jump to a little more critical of an article here. But I think having this kind of discussions, when you discuss policy, where you discuss what you want to do in power, this is what we should be getting from politicians. And to be fair to Musk, he did offer the exact same time frame to the Harris campaign, which they rejected. So they've attacked Trump for doing this, attacked Musk for doing this. How dare he give Trump such a platform? Ironically, over in Europe, they're labeling this as hate speech and threatening Musk and his business over there if he dares to give Trump this kind of platform, which of course Elon Musk told him to take a hike. And again, because Europe does not believe in free speech anymore. So again, it's they sat down, talked about this, talked about prices getting down. One thing that he did mention here was getting rid of certain departments, the Department of Education. A lot of people said we don't know why we have a Department of Education. They talked about oil and gas industry, a lot of different things. I think what I'd love to see is some real policy proposals coming out of the Trump campaign. We're getting this idea, and he's saying, yeah, look, he's going to cut. He wants to do this government efficiency thing. But again, this is a new thing that's being proposed, put out there. Does it have any real teeth? So again, I don't care what side you're on. There are Republicans that'll be on my ballot, and I'm not going to vote for it. Why? Because they have pushed on increased spending. They have pushed the government envelope. They've, again, some of the most moderate Republicans that have voted just as much for Democrat proposals as Republican. Now, I know there's a lot of bipartisanship that just happens. Not everything's partisan. Not everything's fighting on Capitol Hill. The media portrays it as everything's fighting. But when we have Republicans going along with huge bipartisan spending bills, jacking up the cost for our future generations, someone's got to say, stop. We need to put adults back in charge that will get our fiscal house in order. So don't just vote for someone because they're Republican. Don't just vote for someone because they're Democrat. Look at what the proposals are happening. Let's talk about the actual issues and who's going to actually help the economy, help our future. I've got 3 teenagers, 21, turning 22 in just a month or so, and then I've got a 19-year-old and an 18-year-old. And I look at them coming out in this economy. Things are tough. They're going to be going to school, but affording, a rental property, being able to rent, be able to get on their feet, start, and they're working now. It's tough for new kids out there. It's tough for everybody, but especially for new families trying to get on their feet and afford housing in this insane market. That's where it really is hurting people. And so I think just starting with deportations will really help housing. It'll really help our schools that are always strapped for cash. It will really help provide jobs for working Americans. And again, do we need to stop all immigration? No. We need more immigration than our legal system allows for, but with the system being as broken as it is, you don't have the political will to fix it and to fix it right. All they want to do is do another round of amnesty and have the borders wide open. That's all the leftist suggestion. So as hopefully we get more details, the Harris campaign has promised they would within the next week or so, and that was last week. So hopefully this week we get some more details and we can actually discuss concrete policies and procedures. But I think it's very interesting to look at what's happening, especially in Argentina and other places, because it's reflected here. And again, we're talking about the same policies, same ideas here, one way or the other. So I hope this was informative. I hope you learned something from this. And I hope you go and you question the Trump campaign. Question Republicans, question Democrats. Be objective based on facts and not just one side hates the other, they're the bad man. We need less vitriol and more critical thinking here. Thank you and have a great day.